Hey, welcome to the Runaways podcast. My name is Cody, and today we're going to be talking about the last week of ProQuest. We're going to talk about the new MST spoilers that dropped all over the place and answer some questions that the Discord has asked us. And to join me today, we have the one, I guess, and the only today, Dan. So it's just going to be pretty relaxed, you and me, like old times. I mean, it's not really old times. We've like done almost no podcasts, just the two of us, except for the lost episode that hasn't come out at all. But how have you been enjoying this week so far, knowing that it's about to get pretty hectic?
Yeah, so I've enjoyed. I mean, I've still just been playing as much as I can, so it's already hectic. But I enjoyed. It was the first time I got to play with the new Kayo cards. They don't come up that often. Like the sash is one thing, but like the blues, it's like I don't know, one in like every 5 games I get to cast it. It's amazing when it does, and the card's sick. But like, it didn't have that feel of a new deck. Like it's the same deck. The chest is pretty impactful though. But my week got way better when we got the blitz decks revealed for Mistvale. So I just started like grinding with those to get a feel for the new heroes, how they play.
Yeah, I thought those videos were great that they did.
Yeah, no, they were fantastic.
I was like, oh, this is like the first thing. I just sat down, like watched all of them, and I was like, oh,
Yep.
I'm like pumped now. Like actually
Yep.
like, watching like Enigma play, and I was like, oh, this is ticking a lot of boxes for me. Not the boxes of like I think this is good. It was more of like it's ticking all of, like the value boxes and the decision tree boxes and like asking your opponent a bunch of questions. And I was like, oh, I like all of that. And it was cool to see the actual devs, playing, the
Mhm.
decks.
Yeah, it's a good way to showcase like how the new heroes operate, right? Like we're not seeing their power yet, but we're seeing like kind of the bread and butter of how they work, and it's a good look into what the limited format will look like, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think and it made me excited to actually try the heroes. Like I was not excited at all for new, not even a little bit. And watching the videos of new, I was like, ooh, new actually seems pretty exciting now.
Yeah, when she plays against the Zen, is that the new ninja?
Yep,
And he just goes like 6 wide with the ninja's blue cards. That's pretty sick.
yeah, I was pretty impressed. But before we get to more MST, it's we did have a ProQuest week. It was for most people pretty short. Either they had one, or maybe if you're lucky, you had two events this week. I know a lot of people went to the Battle Harden as well, at least in our area. But I did go to a ProQuest, to the last one. I did the whole scramble to find an armory deck so that I actually had the cards to play the ProQuest, and showed up. And I think it felt like we had like 37 people there, which was pretty good considering we had a Battle Harden going on not too far away that a lot of people went to. And then I would say there were like 10, 11 KOs in the room, maybe more. But there was a ton of KO there. Uh, went 2-2 and dropped, and then drove home, which I'm actually like not happy ever to drop, but the weather was horrendous, and it was like a 2-hour drive, and it was not going to be enjoyable to do that rainy drive at like 8, 9, 10 at night if I had stayed the whole time. So there was like a little bit of silver lining there. But to look at what happened last week, we have our big winner is going to be Kayo with 25 wins. I don't think anyone is surprised by this. Kayo
They took the best
continuing.
deck, they made him better,
Yes,
and no one else got better. Just KO.
just Kayo. Yep. And then right below that is Victor at 16. I think that's a little interesting. He's pretty much held that spot the entire season. I think Victor's pretty good at a local level. And then Prism with 8, which is pretty considerate. Azalea with 6, Bravo with 5, Kano with 5. Everything else with a trickle amount from there. I don't think too surprised by any of those numbers. I mean, the KO Armory deck is insane. And I didn't even run the best version this weekend. I wish I had. I know not everyone on the team agrees, but I am like a big Beaten Trackers fan. I think the ability to just have like a fourth power card in the deck, which is basically the boots, where you still have your big like blood rush turns. You still have your 3 wide, play a 2 go again, claw, play another 2 for 6. Like you still have all those turns, but now you have another power turn, which is just set a go again. And that's it. That's a whole power turn. The power is just set a go again, draw 4, and then crack your chest and crack your boots and just go. And he not with blood rush, not with anything else. And that turn is usually 22 to 26 damage. and then the rest of the game plays normally. It's just like, I think that's insane.
Yeah. You just have to find the go again, though, right?
You just have to find the go again and set it. Like that's the difference. Like that's that power turn. But it's not even like, it's not super forced. It's like I don't feel like I'm taking much out of the deck to do that. You still get one block off your boots. Obviously, I'm not running those boots in all the matchups because some matchups you have to roll, and it's just like. But if I'm playing this in like Azalea or like another like aggro matchup or something else, I found that like it just lets you just run people over. I've been really, I think it's overly tuned, and I think Kayo is the best deck in the game. It's the only S tier deck in my opinion, right now.
Oh yeah, no, I've been saying that too. Like he was already at the top, and now he is the only top. Even just the blue cards alone, I think would have made that push, and then the chest introducing like these additional power turns and strategies and like the aggro matchups is just insane.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, I got pretty good success even with the new 2-for-6, that blows up the arsenal. Not that it's like super crazy good, but it is pretty good when you have to take out some of your clash cards and like they're good swap in targets. They're really good into things like Azuri, which sometimes could give you trouble as the KO player, and like because they're trying to set all of these small stealth attacks, and then like you're just like, oh, this is just another CNC every time you play it. So there's like several matchups where that is just a problem for the people that you're playing against. Azalea is a really good example of another person who's like hates to see that card, and now you have like 8 to 9 copies of Arsenal Disruption in the deck. It's just like gross.
And more armor. Yeah, it's like it's what we saw with Starver, right? Like when the best aggro deck has disruption, it's just like unstoppable. So this isn't the most consistent disruption, but when it's good, it's like if you're forcing cards out of their hand, they can't match your output, so you just run them over, right?
Yep. And then like you have the chess piece as a backup plan in case you have to block with cards, and then you need an efficient play. And then like I've just found that the deck became a lot more flexible depending on how you want to build it. Like you can I like the beaten trackers like super aggro, I'm gonna have a power turn play, but you can also just play it with the chess piece and normal boots built the same way with the same game plan, but now you just have some turns that you can pop off, or you have more flexibility based on how the game state is going, that you got your 2 block and now you can at any point in time flip off of a blue, play 2 attacks or whatever. So I find the new flexibility added to the deck on top like helps with the variance issue.
Sure, makes sense.
So I'm concerned. I'm concerned going forward with Kayo.
Yeah, I do think like all of the expansion slot cards are like super pushed that we've seen. Like specifically Levi, it feels like can maybe match. Go toe to toe with KO. But no, I'm with you. I mean, I really don't want a field of like 30% KO at Pro Tour Nationals. He might not make it to Pro Tour. That's the other thing, right?
There is a decent chance that he doesn't make it to Pro Tour if none of the new heroes make a huge splash and eat some of his percentage. But it's very hard, to not have KO at the top of your testing pool going into the national season as like a deck to bring, right? I think the deck is more enjoyable to play than I think a lot of people think it is. There are 2 ways, in my opinion, that you can play KO. And it can just be like, hey, I'm just going to Ooga Booga my hands. And the thing is KO's strong enough where you can just do that and win. And it's like, fine. But the part that like really I enjoy playing about it is almost every turn you have to sit down and then look into the ether of just what is going to happen in your turn. Like, what can I possibly draw? How am I supposed to sequence this turn based on what I draw and what I discard? How many blues are left in my deck? How many red go-agains are left in my deck? How many non-6s are left in my deck? And like doing all those probabilities every single round, and then just having to look and figure out the line that's like, and then the line changes based on how far ahead are you? How far behind are you? So how much of a risk are you supposed to take here? And all of those like decisions that your opponent doesn't see, these are just like decisions you're making internally. Those parts feel very rewarding for the deck, for me personally.
Yeah. On the other side, it's just like, oh, my opponent high rolled. But on your side, you're like calculating, this is my best odds of winning this game, right? All these lines.
Yeah. And I find all that enjoyable about the deck.
Yeah.
More than when I first played it. I thought when the deck first came out, I found it quite boring to play. But as I played it more and more, it continually gets deeper and deeper on how to
I think
play the deck.
There's a much bigger learning curve than I think most people expect. And if you're at the beginning of that learning curve, I think I found the deck pretty unenjoyable when I started testing. Like, this is dumb. I just like high roll when I win, and the games I lose, it's because I like draw bad. But it's like, no, if you go deeper, like it's pretty controlled, controlled variance.
Yep, and a lot of decision points. Like
Hmm.
every round is
Yep.
a real decision point, not just like because even just how you set a card and your sideboard choices, and are you bringing cast
I'd
bones
say
in? Are you
most
not?
rounds.
Like,
When you have a
uh,
wild ride and like two blues, there's really no decisions, right?
yeah, there's not depending on how much your opponent's coming in for, because there's definitely turns where it's block with 2 cards, just swing your weapon, set the card, and I'm going to go off next turn
True.
based on what they're doing. When to use your arms, I think is like a really big decision point a lot of the time.
Hmm.
And I've gotten more and more. I've more and more found I like to use the arms when I have a small hand to get more cards out of their hand to get like momentum back, and it's like not something that I used to do right away. Right? It would be something like, oh, this hand doesn't play well, so I'm going to block, but I'm going to make this attack come in for like 9 or 10 instead. And that way I still get stuff out of their hand and I can come back with like a bigger, stronger hand the next time. And like using your gloves to help with that, like you already have a might token. Now it's getting a +2, is just like, that's like another layer of things to think about. Right.
Sure. And then there's flashbag. That's like a huge one. Like
Yeah.
there's the
Flashback's
obvious
huge.
lines like your opponent blood rushes, sure, flashbag. But then there's like sometimes you're supposed to do it on the wild ride or just spots where you don't usually do it. So yeah, I'm with you. Lots of decisions.
I find the mirror gets a little interesting as well about like when you're supposed to flashbag, because there's like a million points in the game when you want to use the flashbag. Like,
Yeah.
use it on their blood rush turn. Okay, that makes sense. Use it when they crack their chess piece. Okay, that makes sense. You save it for as late as possible to wrestle all the momentum back so they can't just no block your hand. Like, that's all of these are viable plays, and who knows which one's correct, right? Like there's a good argument for each one of those, which is
Yep.
why I find the mirror I think more interesting than I thought it was.
Yeah. No, I completely agree.
Um, and I think this has some of that Starvo effect where like you new players can absolutely pick up this deck and crush,
Yep.
and grow with the deck while they're learning the game. Um, and it's like they can actually just take a deck to their armory for the first time, get wins, which is not something that you can always do depending on the
Yep.
meta of this game.
I think even like ProQuest you can get wins
Oh
with
yeah,
this deck if you're
absolutely.
new.
Yep. Okay. So I guess that's our rant on KO a little bit. I am a little worried going into the national season what we're gonna do. This deck feels a little more severely more pushed than a lot of the power we've seen in a long time. It's
Yep.
not good enough that it would ever compete with the FAB 1.0, but it is the top level of 2.0 I think we've had in a while. Depending on where you put Lexi in 1.0 or 2.0, because Lexi was very much a 1.0 deck in my opinion.
I think it's the fridge that does it, right? Like Azalea
Yeah.
has similar output, but
Mhm.
Azalea doesn't have 12 block or whatever KO has. If you count the flashbag as like 5 block plus, usually it's like it's nuts.
Well, I think it more than that. It's just the fact that the deck can sometimes just decide to block and throw back like so. Like if you're playing like
Oh,
a
sure.
vomit stuff at your opponent, and then like your opponent comes in and you're both getting low, you can just be like, I will have a might token. I'll block with 2 cards,
Yeah,
Bear
and throw a bear
Fangs
fangs for 10.
and you're like, they're like, but a 2 card 9, and then you get the might token back again, and then like I can't compete with that in the end game when you're both low, right? Like it's just like
Yeah.
nothing most
No, I'm
decks
with you.
can do about that. And
It
so
has the
its ability
efficient
to
two
just
card hands, a warrior. It's got a fridge.
it's got 5 card hands, four
It's
card
got everything.
hands, 3 card hands, 2 card
It's
hands.
got disruption now.
Yeah, it's got disruption now. It checks all the boxes of what you want in like a if you're looking for a top deck to play. It has like
Yep.
no 0% matchups. No, I think I honestly think its worst matchups are like 40%.
Agree. And it plays like 24 plus blues really well, which
Yep.
I think is a huge benefit. Like very rare you draw 4 reds, and it's got some cards that are good there. Like you can block and cast bones. You can Tunic Savage Feast and draw your blue.
Yep. I don't know. Deck is very good. Very good. I don't think it needed the armory deck, but there's a
Yeah.
reason why it's at like 500 points now and might just be gone before ProQuest or Pro Tour.
Yeah, that would be
So
really wild. That's like a huge shakeup, right? Because the claws go too. So it's like I think Reinhar's fine. It's still like most Reinhar's are playing club at this point. Because if you're gonna play
mhm,
claws, you should at least play Leviah or KO, right?
agreed. I do like Club Reinar a little bit. I put some work into that, but it doesn't seem to get as good use out of the chess piece. Though I have been just sitting here, been like, how can I run this chess piece in Levia? How can I do it? How can I run
Oh,
the new
sure.
Sash? But I just can't find any ways where it actually makes profitable sense. There are some like after you flip turns that it could be like super juice on, but that seems like a lot to all hinge on that chess piece. Okay, so we got a whole slew of MST spoilers here. We're going to talk about some of our favorite cards, but this period of Flesh of Blood, I always think this is the best of times. It was the worst of times, and it's like it's great because we're getting all these spoilers. It's terrible because we're still waiting for the rest of the spoilers. So it's like everything that you think about is just like half baked. You can kind of start testing things, but we're just sitting here like, give us more. And they're not even spoon feeding them to us. They're just like, this weekend, whole set.
Yep. I don't know. Usually I hate this time, but I'm like super motivated right now, so I'm just jamming with what's available. Like I'm playing the Blitz deck, so I can unlimited. I'm testing new with what we have so far because the assassin pool is pretty deep already. And then as we get more cards, I'll disregard my previous testing and add the new stuff. I don't know. I'm with you though. I just wish we could have it all and start working.
Or just like a couple of spoilers every day until the whole set drop. You know, like space it out a little bit would be nice. Like, why can't we just get like 4 spoilers every day this week, 5 spoilers every day this week? Because they're going to drop the whole set like a week before Tokyo is what, roughly what they said, I believe. Yep. So like, we're going to have them all by then anyway. So like, why not just feed it out through the week, build up the hype for the end instead of like this weekend is just going to be like all of the cards.
Yeah, I agree with you, but I'm fine with it because they dumped the Blitz decks. Like, I'm just going to jam those because that's like, I think it's a pretty good picture of what limited should look like, right?
It's a good, it's a good idea of what limited play it might look like.
I think it really helps with like making card valuations when we do get the full set. Mm-hmm. Like have these as your baseline. Like this is kind of how the heroes operate.
Okay, so looking at the big dump of cards that we have right now, I'll ask you some of the things. What are just some cards that you might get excited about, or what are some first impressions of the set that you've had, so far?
Sure. I love the new assassin attack reactions that cost 1 and create a token that either gives you +1 or go again. I think the modularity is like so sick, and that's like everything I would want in a card game. It reminds me of like Slay the Spire when you play
yep.
I forget the combo guy. But like making cards out of your cards is so strong. Like and I guess they're full cards, right?
Yeah, just for people to
like
know.
A Phoenix Flame?
We're talking about Hiss as one of the big ones that was revealed. That gets it gives a target assassin or mystic attack action card at +3, and then if you've pitched a blue card this turn and it costs 1, so you're probably pitched a blue card this turn, create a Slither in your hand, and Slither is target attack action. It gets go again. So basically, it is a Razor Reflex that doesn't have to hit. Is a good way to think about it. But it also blocks 3. But here's the real key part. You can set the Slither.
Well, hold on. It goes deeper than that. You could set it. Yeah. You can bottom it to E-Strike. You can set it then standing order. Like, my God.
Yep. You just can't put it in your graveyard. When it goes in the graveyard, it goes away. Or pitch it. Correct. None of those 2 options. But you can keep it. That's the extra bonus. So you can Slither and be like, I don't need go again on this turn. Set my go again for next turn. Like, that's spicy.
Yeah. No, making cards is extremely strong. You can even like, I hadn't thought about that before, but there's one of the transcend cards that it's like draw a card, then bottom a card.
Yep.
So you literally just draw a card and then transcend.
Yep. And then put Slither on the bottom of your deck.
Yeah. Which is fine, right? Like,
yeah.
End of game, fine. Go 0 cost go again, sure. I don't know. There's just like there's so much you can do with that. And at the base level, if you're just doing pay 1, get 3, go again every time, that's amazing too. Like,
agreed. I mean, I will say this, before these spoilers came out, I was not excited about new at all. I was like, new is my least favorite
Same.
of all of the three. After the Blitz decks came out, after the games were played specifically, and after I read through the cards, I went, new has all the stuff I like the most so far. Like, I'm way more excited to see the rest of the kit.
Yeah, the
for
stealth
new.
cards are really strong. Like a lot of them banish 2 cards. They all gain a health if they hit. I'm pretty high on the one that if you play 2 reacts, it gets +2.
Double trouble.
Yeah, and it banishes 2 from the top. Like
And
I
it
don't know.
banishes too. I'm
I
more
wish I
scared about
knew
these
how to play
cards in
Fast
Azuri,
more.
to be fair.
Yeah.
Like, these really scare me about Azuri. Because they're just assassin cards, they're not mystic. So you can play them in Azuri. You could play them in Arachne if you wanted to, but they are stealth cards, so you'd probably not. But you can just play them in Azuri as a stealth card. Which means you can switch into them, use Azuri's ability, or if they hit, they banish stuff off the top, and quite often gain a health.
Yep.
Or
I
some
bet
other effect.
Arachne Blitz enjoyers are pretty pleased. All these
Mhm.
stealth cards that can go again.
No, I am legitimately a little concerned about how much this buffs Azuri. Because, like, you've played against a lot of Azuri. I've played against a lot of Azuri. And these are how the games usually go. Are like, it's pretty grindy back and forth for most of the game.
Yeah, it's
You
always tight.
usually have to fat stack into Azuri, or their chances of fatiguing you are a little too high. But in the end game, currently, what you have to worry about is dominate. They dominate in the end game because they play their stealth cards in cycle 1, switch into it, but all their stealth cards are dominate stealth cards.
Right.
And so those go on the bottom of the deck. So then in the end game, they're just playing dominate cards with either like a pump, or they're playing a dominate card into a switch in to try and like finish the last piece of damage off. So like one of the easy ways to play around Azuri is have some health gain, don't take as much damage, go into the final cycle with like more health, and then that kills an entire way for them to win the game, right? But if they play these stealth cards, they banish stuff on the top of your deck. So they get to play the card, and then you have to guess if you're blocking it or not for the switch in, right? And then they can bottom it. And then in the late game, when you both have really small decks, they're just like, play this card if it hits, win the game more, and heal a health. Like, that's like really scary on the second and third cycle.
Yeah, and they can the blue double trouble. They can play that with a blue shred and flick knives, and they turn their blue into a red and use mill 2 cards. Like, I'm with you.
Yep. I mean, art of desire body is when this hits a hero, banish the top card of their deck. Whenever this banishes a red card, which is your opponent's best cards, 99% of the time, draw a card and gain 1 health.
Does it say whenever?
Yep. Whenever this banishes a red card, draw a card and gain 1 health.
So if you crack the helmet to banish 2,
yeah,
you could potentially draw 2.
If you banish 2 red cards, I believe that's how that would work.
Sheesh. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's scary.
But I'm just thinking more of like, they just play it, and then you're like, oh, do I block this? Does it hit? And then they just get to like draw an arsenal card and then gain a health. Like, in the late game, when you're both just just struggling for that in-game position, this card's like a blowout. Like, you have to block this.
Yeah, and she was one of the strongest late game decks already. Like, if you got to the late game and you're both at like 10, usually Azuri comes out on top, right?
Yep. So this stuff, and that's just what we've seen. There could still be good Majestics. There could still be good other stuff. And I think this is already a pretty impressive power upgrade for Azuri, at least in options wise. It makes some of their reactions that can only be played on stealth cards way more interesting as well. So little worried about Azuri. These are some good upgrades, and that deck is frustrating to play against for most decks in the game. Okay, so
yeah, it's just all coin flips, right? You're like, I can play around either case, but I have to pick one to hedge towards, and then we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I feel like you have to have a really good game plan every time you sit down across from Azuri.
Yep.
Okay, and then what else? What else besides these these new cards? What else are you excited about?
Yeah, none of the Zen cards really excite me. Yet. I'm holding out hope. I think they seem good and limited. Like was it Pouncing Key? It's a 2 cost. It comes in for 7 if you've played a Crouching Tiger. That seems really strong. It feels like all the decks kind of want good 2-cost cards from what I'm seeing. But no, a lot of those cards were like already in the pool, right? It's a lot of
Yeah.
Tiger Makers. So we'll see. I'm excited to see more Ninja cards come out. Um, yeah, I don't know. I think Transcend is like really cool from the games I played. It feels good when you Transcend and you can do it like semi efficiently, but it's usually not efficient because you have to play a blue card. Yeah, I don't know. Transcend's gonna be interesting. It seems really good for Enigma because she looks like can operate pretty well off of blues. Didn't feel great when I was playing new. Um, Other than being like, okay, I got these things in your banner, so now I'm gonna end the game, which is pretty cool as like a second cycle thing. Um, just to have that option.
Agreed. I mean, we didn't get a lot of things to bite on for the Zin. It feels like we're missing some more of his big pieces from this deck. Is how it feels. But I was impressed by the number of crouching tigers they were making. Now the crouching tigers, most of them didn't do anything. It felt like he just like made a million crouching tigers in the video, and then like they just went away. Right?
Yeah, we need like the uprising gloves that pump
Yes.
Phoenix Flames. We need that we need an equipment piece that does it for tigers. So you can have your one big turn and you get like 3 value or whatever.
Yeah. Are those gloves draconic?
I think so.
The Phi gloves? Are the Phi gloves draconic? Or are they
Wait,
just
what?
ninja?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure they're draconic because they literally care about Phoenix Flames.
Oh no. I meant his legendary gloves.
Oh, Shuko?
Yeah, Shuko.
Oh, Shuko's ninja. Yeah, Shuko's gonna be great.
Yeah. So yeah, you play Shukos in this deck then, right?
Oh, I thought we were talking about draft. Yeah. You definitely play Shuko.
Just in general, just the deck in general.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, 100%. You're playing Shuko. I assume.
Yeah. But that's what I was saying for like he was making a ton of tigers, which was impressive. That's more than normal. At least with like the current. Every time I played Kitty Cat Katsu or whatever, it's like you don't make that many. You only make that many like once in a while. But he seemed to be able to make them in the video like quite often, which is super helpful for making the deck function. It's just like he couldn't really attack with them because they didn't have any attack value. But I think it just feels like we're missing pieces here for Zen, like some big pieces, in my opinion. So I think we're probably gonna get those this weekend, right?
Yeah, I don't think we've gotten one like class majestic so far. I think for the classes that are in the set.
Yep. Now for Enigma, I was very impressed by Enigma. Not necessarily like its power level, per se, but just its play pattern was so nice. Like, just I really like. I have to commend. I've played a couple of games of Enigma, and we don't even have all the cards. But I have to say, though, this hero is designed beautifully, in my opinion. It's like a way I want to play the game that has so much additional value. It does so many things. You have all these decisions to make. You play on every access of the game, whether you're putting auras in play, whether you have to decide on how you want to block or if you want to lose an aura, if you let your board reset, if you're setting up your board now, and then you get bonuses if the things are gone or not. You get free swings with spectrals. It's just like, oh man, it's like all the things. And when you start like putting in like the kimono and then like the helmet that gives you a ponder when one of them gets destroyed, you're like, oh, so much extra value. It's just like it's everything I want. So far, I don't see any power there. Like, it just doesn't seem very strong at all with what we currently have. But again, we don't have any of the stuff. But man, is the design really interesting. What was your initial impressions of Enigma? I don't know if you got any games in with it at all.
I haven't played Enigma yet. I definitely see the appeal in what you were saying. I was kind of just afraid to play the deck because of like Kayo and random Vincent, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't gone too deep on Enigma yet.
Well, I have. I've been looking into it. I really like. There are some things to be scared about with the ward stuff, for sure. But the way that the deck functions so far seems really good to me. So we're kind of waiting to see some more payoffs. It seems very grindy, potentially, but the real question is if your grindiness can outscale the pure aggro, right? obviously this seems pretty easy into like certain decks that are slower, that have, less real output, which is always how Illusion has functioned. This, not as dominating as, other ones. It's not, like if you're playing as Bravo, they can still dominate, push through a bunch, and blow up a bunch of your ward, right? So not as debilitating, but still has that power against slower decks. But I'm a little worried for its ability to have any game into something like KO, right?
Yep.
Like
I was playing when I was playing the Blitz games with the new decks. I was playing against Enigma, and it's like it really does put you under pressure to be like, man, I just have to like keep my hand to pressure because you have 3 things with ward that are also weapons. Like I have to just keep whatever I have, even if it's inefficient. But like sometimes you don't draw the go again, and it's just like it feels really bad when Enigma keeps your things. So I think it's like you said, you got to like find ways to do that. And against like decks that cannot go 3 wide consistently, it seems very viable. But yeah, against KO, I don't know. Like surely KO just never blocks and
Yeah.
just dumps 15 plus damage every turn, right?
Yep. Maybe we get some more good, like some of these auras are really good. Like if you've pitched a blue, you play the ghost wolf one, and then like if it gets blown up and you've paid a blue, you get a spectral, like stuff like that. It's just like really, really like intelligent design. And that's the stuff that we were looking to see. It's called Waning Vengeance. It has a spectral wolf on it. It says, when this leaves the arena, if you've pitched a blue card this turn, create a spectral shield token. And the red one has word 3, and it's an instant, and it costs 1. Like that, I think that card is like really cool, really good.
Yep, pretty good. And in constructed, you can always use the extra resource, right? Worst case, you block with footsteps.
Yep, and like Haze Shelter is super good. And that's the ward X, where X is 4 if you've pitched a blue card this turn, and it's an instant. And you're just like, oh, sometimes it's just a D-react, sometimes, it's more than that. But like being able to have these 2 costs, 1 costs, you're playing on your opponent's turn in a way, all these things I find, they're checking all the boxes for me so far. I just, don't see any power there yet, but it looks very fun to play so far.
Sure.
Anything else that you saw out of MST that you liked a lot? I know your favorite card you got to finally play with, which is Stir the Pot. Yep.
Yeah. I'm impressed. Like I think it's a real thing if any deck wants to first cycle Transcend, like more than once, I think it's a real card.
Okay. Can you imagine if it said shuffle target deck?
I cannot. That would be so wild.
Just shuffle your opponent's deck. No pitch stacking allowed.
Yep. No, I think it's a strong effect. As soon as you have like what are they called? As soon as you have Chi in your deck.
No, I definitely agree. Even like the Battlefront Bastions from the videos were like so good.
Oh my god, they're so good against new.
Yeah.
It's just like forget your daggers, get those out of here. Also, your blue that attacks her one, that's not hitting. Sorry.
Yep. They were impressive, and cards like that have always found a home in defensive decks. I could easily see that slotting in to some like Spring Tunic area, and stuff like that. Or Fighting Spirit is what I meant to say.
Oh yeah.
It's like similar, like if your deck's running Fighting Spirit, you might actually have to decide between those two now. It feels like a very similar role. So, and then on offense, it's just a 3 for 7, which, used to be a good way to win the game.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think this is better ridging Onslaught, right?
Yeah.
Like this goes in first.
Yep. And then against, lower to the ground decks, it has like a lot of utility.
Yep.
Okay. Anything else before we move on to Discord questions?
No, I'm excited to get the sauce. Like we're missing all of the power cards for this set, which is kind of exciting.
This time next week, we are officially practicing for nationals.
Yeah, I mean, I'm already started. I'm officially practicing.
Yeah. But I mean, officially, like with all the cards, with the whole team ready to go. The grind happens.
I'm just gonna slam KO on everyone, and if someone beats me, I'll switch decks. If they don't, I'll play KO.
We have 1 week to find a deck and then lock it in. That's kind of what it feels like.
Oh boy.
Okay. So we have a number of podcast questions for this week. These questions are asked from our premium Discord. They are asked by different members. If you'd like to join the Discord to get a whole bunch of different things, videos every month, interactions with the team, questions, deck lists, all of that is available, and ask questions on this podcast, please join the link below. I will say we just dropped like 10 videos as well. And one of them was, I was actually pretty happy with it. It was Turtle Burst into Kayo. That was a super fun game to record and put up as well. Okay. So first question here from Rinzo. This was asked a little bit ago, but good to go. It says, looking at the LL board, Dash IE has the most points. Would you consider Dash IE in this meta? If so, what build, hybrid slab, or what? Yeah, I tried to play it. I tried to play it for 2 weeks. Couldn't get the cards.
You're saying pre-missed fail, right?
Yeah, pre-missed fail. I could not. I don't like own like any Evo cards like from that set for Bright Lights. Other than like the million cards that we drafted, because I just wasn't playing Magic at the time. But there was several weeks where I really wanted to bring Slapdash because I thought it was very strong into our local meta. And I enjoy playing that deck, especially now with like equipping the equipment and putting the items in play. You just get all this additional value. I think Slapdash is pretty strong. There was several.
Yeah, I can say that's because of a lack of KO you were considering it, right? Interesting.
Too many big turns, because you could always deal with big turns, and then they were going to have some off turns, and sometimes KO struggles to push through everything. If you're just like willing to give them the cards for it, and then just chip, but not with the new chess piece. Now that's a little too scary for me. So probably don't play Dash at all. Any thoughts? You're not much.
No, I'll go with you. I haven't really played much Dash,
but it is great playing into Victor with like a Slapdash. Like it really depends on your meta, but
that makes sense.
There was definitely some time there where I was going to be playing it. Okay, Millen asks, what is the hero that did better in the PQ season than you expected?
I mean, just the 4th week, you said Bravo was like 4th most wins with 5. I'm always surprised when he wins, even in Armory.
True.
I don't know what else.
Surprised? Maybe early on it was Dorinthia. She was putting up pretty good numbers, and I don't typically see. We don't see adoption from decks be that quick to like the hatchets, so that was a little bit surprising. I mean, not surprised because I think the deck was good, but like surprised from adoption rate. I think Victor continually being like number 2 is like a little much. I understand it. It's like very strong at a local level. It gets significantly weaker as you move up into a higher echelon of play, where people actively know how to play around that type of value and have good game plans, because you're pretty limited in scope of what you can do as a Victor player to influence a game. But nothing too much.
Yeah, maybe like Prism's adoption and success. Like it's not an easy deck to play. If you don't play it well, right, you're not winning any games because you have 32 health and your cards don't block. So I thought the like week 2 and 3, I think it had like 10 or so wins, right? That's pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, everything's a bit expected. Maybe KO's should have won more. Is maybe an answer there. Okay. Sinope asks, with the addition of Savage Sash, has Kayo now officially become the only S tier deck in the format? Also, if you expect KO representation to continue to rise, is Hatchet Dorinthia now back on the Warrior menu, given her more favorable matchup into KO over Kasai? This is a 2-part question, and there's a small issue in this question, I think.
Yeah. I mean, part 1, yeah, KO is by far tier 0, but no one else is with them.
You want to cover part 2?
Yeah, sure. Part 2. I don't know. In our opinion, Kasai is the better warrior at defeating the chaos. I think Dory's fine. After playing both decks extensively now, I'd rather be on the KO side every time. Dory can definitely get there, but I think the way it plays, you both just have to kind of play max efficiency, and whoever's draw lines up better wins, really. It's kind of on the door to draw like their red go agains and use hit and run on the second swing and not the first swing.
Yeah, I think Kasai is significantly better into KO than Dory is. Dory is trying to match value with value without any real power, which it can do. It could do a lot better before people are aware of the deck. But Kasai matches power with power and efficiency. So they get to play both sides of the coin. And they have turns that if your opponent doesn't block, they're basically putting themselves on a timer. So like anytime you play not Spill Blood, but Spoils of War, if the KO decides I'm not blocking this turn, they've now officially put themselves on a timer for your big turn, because you can just hold one card or two cards and have like a turn that's just as good as one of their turns for a full grip. Same with like if you're playing Raise the Army, you get a lot of gold as the Kasai in that matchup because they can't really, actually block very well. As when they start blocking and you get to start keeping full grips as Kasai, you get to push a lot of damage in that matchup that the KO can't play out of in the end game. Once they get to the point where they have to think about your reactions, it's really hard for the KO to continue to play the game the way that they want to play the game. It's a little bit easier now with Sash, obviously, than before. But if I was going to play a warrior to beat Kano specifically, a KO specifically, I would be playing a aggressive version of Kasai, not the Kasai with a million D reacts like we've been seeing. You need to play an aggressive version that has really strong reactions.
Yeah, I agree. Because it's also really hard for KO to find blocks. Like, you can't block Heat Streak. You just can't give them go again. You have to make them use the card, right? Like, unless you know they have it and it's going to be wasted otherwise. Like, you just can't block that. So if they threaten Kasai ability or, what is it?
Spill Blood?
No, the copper making card you said.
Spill Blood.
Is it Spill Blood?
No. Spoils of War.
Spoils, yeah, or spoils.
Yeah,
like you're just like, it's bad if you block, it's bad if you don't block. And like the might tokens that KO makes pretty much offsets the boots value. So like KO really just matches the efficiency of Dory. Like you said, without the power. So like it's on the Dory to kind of draw well and like line up a Tunic Shunt or get 3 wide and get 6 value out of a Spill Blood. Like I said, Kasai is just like, you're gonna get your golden copper at some point, and if it happens soon enough and you find your power cards, it's pretty tough for KO.
Also, I'll tell you something KO does not like to deal with. Nourishing Emptiness. You just play the Nourishing Emptiness and the KO goes, I have to block now and you get my armor. Because if I give you 5 cards, it doesn't matter if I go 3 wide. You're just going to block with 4 of them. Like,
it's really annoying.
It's like Nourishing Emptiness is significantly annoying as a KO player.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because every time you're like, I got set up. I have this big turn. And they're like, Nourishing. And you're like, and they still have Helmet up. So you're like, my turn doesn't do anything. Like, it does. Like, I have to block here.
CNC too, but it's not the same. Like,
yeah,
we don't care if we like go down a card sometimes, but if you go up a card, which it should be the same, but I don't know. It just means your turn's pointless. If you have 5 cards to block, like I can't go. I'm not going to deal damage. So what am I even doing?
Yeah. So I would say, like, if I was going to play a warrior, actually, if I'm going to be honest here, if you're going to play a warrior who can play well into KO, you might play Dawnblade Dorinthia. That matchup is rather difficult as KO because you can't really stop the counters very well in that matchup. So, but if you want to play an actual good deck that also happens to be have a matchup into KO, then Kasai. I personally think Hatchet Dorinthia is dead, in my opinion. I just don't think the deck's very good anymore, and I don't think there's a good reason to play it. The reason to play it before is because it was a warrior deck that had all the warrior advantages that could also beat Dromai. When Dromai left, I think Hatchet Dorinthia lost a lot of the reason to play the deck, other than if you just liked the deck.
No, I agree. It's a very like smooth and fun deck to play, but it's, I don't know. If you want a tier, it's like tier 2, tier 2.5.
Yeah, it's like 2.5 for me right now. To be
I
think with perfect play, it's a little higher than that. Like I could still bring it places and do well because we have hundreds and hundreds of games.
It's very consistent, and there's like an efficiency check. If your deck isn't this efficient or this powerful, like you're not going to beat it.
But it's not, the deck is not crazy strong, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Agreed.
Plark asks, how long until it's considered slow play, and how do you call a judge over without seeming rude?
The second part's a good question. How long? I think the rules define it as unreasonable amount, so it's like subjective. I don't know. I think it's more if it's a like consistent thing. Like tanking on 1 or 2 turns is expected, right? Whether it's 60 seconds or 2 full minutes. If it's like every turn for the first few turns, that's usually when you want to like start the conversation. Um, if it starts impacting you immediately, that's too slow, right? Like if it's affecting your mental, then call a judge or talk to your opponent. Um, yeah, how do you do without seeming rude? I mean, I guess first of all, it's not rude to do so. Um, you can call a judge over, the judge will watch. If your opponent's not still playing and you're in the wrong, that nothing's really going to come of it. Like the judge will just move on after a few turns because everything's good. I don't know. What do you think, Cody?
Okay. I'm gonna teach everyone the secret to dealing with this. It's very, very, very simple. Typically, in the first, when I sit down and I'm gonna play, in the first 1 to 3 turns, if someone has a turn that is taking longer than it should, and typically if you're gonna get a lot of slow play, people are consistently slow. They're not just like slow on like the 15th round only, and then like you're now worried about calling a judge for slow play. Like that's almost never happened. Typically, it's just someone's like kind of continually slow. But it'll be like round 1, 2, or 3, someone's a little slow, and I just say, hey, you can take your time on this decision that you need, but we can't play like this every round. It's something to that effect. It's just like, hey, feel free to take your time to make this decision, but we gotta have to play faster moving forward. Something like that. Just you're letting your opponent know, hey, you are playing pretty slow here, but you're saying, hey, I understand this might be a difficult line early in the game for you or decision, so feel free to make a good decision here, but we can't keep doing this. So like you've fulfilled all the requirements. Like you let them know that this type of play can't continue. If it continues, there will be a problem. But at the same time, you're respectful and letting them because sometimes it's like turn 2 or 3 and it's like a really hard decision that impacts the entire game. And they might never play that slow for the rest of the game anyway. But you're just like setting that expectation ahead of time. Second part is if they slow again, hey, I'm going to need you to make a decision. I've said that countless times. Hey, we're going to have to make a decision. We're not going to finish on time. And then that's when, if they continue to not do it, I call a judge. But you're not rude at that point. There is no rude, right? Because like you gave them the warning at the beginning of the game, and you explained, hey, we have to do this to finish the game, and you've asked, you reminded them by asking them to make a decision, and then they still continue to ignore that you get a judge involved. That's how I've always personally handled it. I've never had to call a judge. I've only done it the exact same once.
And that was the same way, especially with the first warning. The other thing I'll do is like, I'll say how much time's on the clock while they're tanking.
Yep.
Especially if like the game's going fine. Otherwise, like that's just me telling you like this is our allocated time. Like use it correctly so we can have a winner. I've never called a judge for slow play. Not that I wouldn't. But usually the process that Cody described there, that's been effective for me too.
Yep. Yeah, it's a lot of like, okay, we're at about 15 minutes, so we're both going to have to speed this up a little bit. And I say, we both are going to need to speed. You're not,
oh yeah. And I've
soft language, right?
Yeah. And I've been the one using more time before. And I pointed out myself, like, hang on, we're going way too slow. It's mostly my fault or whatever. Like we have this much time. Let's work together here.
Yeah. That I've done that when I was playing Dorinthia week 1 of ProQuest season. And I was sitting across from an Olympia, and honestly, we ate like 15 minutes and 4 turns. Like, and I was like, looked up, like, okay, this game could go to fatigue. So I was like, we're gonna have to speed up, or this game could go long and we might run out of time. Of course, we finished the game like 10, 12 minutes later. But there's no way for me to know that at that state because I didn't know how my opponent was going to play. But 4 turns in 15 minutes is like ridiculous. And it was on both of us because it was like really complicated early game because we both have all of our gas at the beginning, right? But yeah, I that's how I've always handled it. Doesn't matter like what the player is. There's been also plenty of times where, say, you're the person who has to take the time. I would just verbalize that. Hey, I need a couple of minutes. This is a really hard decision. Like, and I just let them know ahead of time. Like, I'm not stalling. I'm not like lost. I've just identified that this is a tough spot. I'm going to need a couple minutes here. And then I've never had anyone have an issue with that. They just look at the clock and they go, got plenty of time. And we've already been playing at a good pace, right? So it's, not a problem typically. But that's how I handle it.
Yep, good tip. Yeah, you both want the game to finish, right? Like you're
Yep.
you're working together in that regard. You would like to finish the game of Flesh and Blood.
Renzo asks, with more and more MST spoiling, what heroes looks strongest from the new set? New?
Yeah,
What we
new just
currently
because
have?
of the card pool. I don't really care about her ability currently. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not currently willing to play like 30 blues to make it a consistent thing. Like maybe second cycle, it's a cool thing you can do to close the game. Like Azuri's endgame is really strong. Maybe New's endgame is I'm now transcending and I'm gonna play all of your blue cards that I earned throughout the game.
Yeah. Currently, new has impressed me the most, though the back of my head is itching that like there has to be an Enigma deck here. Like there's it, like the way that it plays. I just need to see more, right? But I would currently say I went into this thinking new was bleh. I came out of this going, ooh, new though. So Doc R asks, would you rather play a deck whose all matchups lie within the 60-40 range, like Kayo, or a deck that is more polarizing matchups like 75-25? That's the question, right? That's the whole game, right?
Yep. I mean, my sweet spot has always been the 60-40 deck that has one 90-10 matchup and it's against the meta deck, and it's always Illusionist. I always play the aggro deck that beats up Illusionist and flips coins into other decks.
Yeah, I think it depends on the tournament.
Yeah.
I think at a ProQuest, it is probably better to be in the 60-40 range. I think at large events, that is arguable which direction you should actually play in. But that's kind of the game within the game for Flesh and Blood. I know a lot of people, have been complaining maybe a little bit about the polarizing matchup spreads, but unfortunately, that's part of the picking a good deck for the tournament. I mean, for Pro Tour specifically, we took a deck that was basically 60-40 everywhere, because it was the only thing that didn't have a bunch of zeros.
Yep. That's my issue. I'm not willing to play a deck at a major that has like a 20% or less into one of the like top 3 most popular decks.
But I can easily say that there's plenty of people who have paid off playing decks that are 75-25.
Yep.
That's like, to me, there is no right answer to that question. That is a personal decision of what you're with what variants you're okay with handling.
Yeah, I more care about the other factors of like, how does the deck play? Is it something I enjoy? Is it something I know how to play well?
The Jetster asks, with Nationals coming up and only 2 weeks after the new set is releasing, how do you prioritize your time in order to maximize the limited time that you have before Nationals?
Easy, get started now. Play the silly blitz decks.
You get 4 weeks, not 2 weeks. I know it's fun to say you get 2 weeks because it's technically 2 weeks after the set's released, but we all know, we can all let each other in on the secret. We start next week. Like, we'll have the whole set. As soon as you have the whole set, that's testing. So you got 4 weeks. Look, 1 week for CC testing, and then 3 weeks for limited testing, and you got to lock in a deck, and then that's it. There you go. I've given you the keys to the castle right there. That's what you got to do.
No, I agree. Like, don't dirtle around with your CC deck. Just give it a week max. Just pick something.
Pick something, lock it in, grind it, and grind limited.
If you have to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Agreed.
I think that's it. Start now, start early. Pick your CC deck quick and just put in as much time as you can.
I'm going to be I'm excited to see what like everyone ends up on at Nationals, and just like how much of it like people are just like, I didn't know what to play, I just locked it in and played it. Like, we just like it'll be great. Last question here from Null says, during a big event like Nationals, which has many side events, can you tell the people grinding for the prize wall or best EV what is the best route might be? No idea. I don't do prize wall grinding. I don't play side events.
Yeah, same, but I think I have a little intel. So if you're talking just prize wall, you should just buy tickets from people. If you mean like just side event grinding in general, there's some really juiced ones. Like you obviously play all the ones that have like an exclusive cold foil, like the energy potions or whatever. Like those are great. Um, I think that's kind of the current method is you sign up for all of those, and if you have time to finish the event, you play until you get your first loss, probably. Because if you go undefeated, you get like 1,000 tickets at all of these. Um, I don't know. Otherwise, you kind of just look at the ticket payouts and like what formats you're best at, and go from there. I'd say. There's always like a gold foil tournament for a commoner, where the turnout's usually somewhat low. Um, so if you actually like practice for commoner, you could spike a common or majestic gold foil or gold foil rather. That's pretty sick. I don't know, just scout out like the events beforehand, make a schedule.
Cool. I've only played 3 side events ever, and from all the events that I've gone to. So typically I'm I'm typically playing day 1, day 2, and then typically the battle harden on day 3. But sometimes I drop early from the battle harden and go play whatever event there is there. Or like Worlds, I didn't have a day 3 event, and I was like, I want a cold foil shackle. I'm just gonna go to a sealed event and win it, and then that's what I did, and then I got my cold foil shackle.
Yep. Like for it was like at Nats after I lost my top 8 game, I heard they were doing side events for stamped draft packs. I was like, yeah, I'll play more Flash of Blood.
Yeah,
it was a mistake, but it was fun to get more stamped cards.
I don't know. I do value my stamp cards a lot.
I really enjoy them.
Because when you play the card, you get to say LSS stamped whatever the card is. That was like my favorite part about my Draw My deck, which is what I'm sad about, is I had all these stamped dragons, and I'd be like, LSS stamped Kyloria when I played it. And that's just extra powerful.
Agreed.
Well, I think that is all from us for this week. I am going to go play some more Blitz decks. So goodbye, everyone. Take care. See ya.
Yeah, we're getting rid of the envelope here, but
What we could do here is go ahead and play the envelope.
All 3 pitches of Envelope and Darkness.